Hi, Dr. Lou here to discuss a very specific question, pros and cons. Should a game designer play in his own playtest sessions? Should you play your own game while you're playtesting? You might think that's an easy question, but it's not. Now, of course, I'm talking about games for more than one person. And some will answer, of course you can or even should play. And my answer is no, you probably shouldn't. So here's a list of the pros and cons, and I'll go through each one individually. But first I want to say, yes, of course, play solo. Whether it's a game designed to be played solo or a cooperative game or a game for more than one player, even if it's a game for 6 players, play it solo before anybody else plays and work the worst problems out of the game before you inflict it on someone else. And I did say inflict. What you might think might be fine, what you might think is acceptable without having played it, real players might not. Don't give prototypes and game designers a bad name by giving people completely broken games. Play it yourself until you're convinced that it's worth asking other people to play. Now, I know not all game designers have that point of view. That's my point of view, that I want to treat the players like people and not just a means to my end. Okay, the first of the pros and cons is the designer effect. When people play a game and the designer is playing, there's a tendency for them to think in one of two ways. One is, he's the designer, he's inevitably going to win, so then the player doesn't do much to prevent him from winning. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. The other is, he's the designer, we have to gang up on him or we'll win. He'll win. And of course that's only games for more than 2. And in either case, the results of the testing are skewed by the participation of the designer. So I call this the designer effect. It doesn't apply much in 2-player games. Although even there can be a psychological thing where the player who's not the designer says, oh well, he's going to win, I'm not going to try hard, whatever. Now here's an example. I don't know if it was the designer effect or not, but it was very odd. I play tested one of my games recently at a convention with 3 other players who had not played the game. It's not a highly strategic game. It's a 4X war game, more or less, that it uses only cards. It was by far the most one-sided play of the game I had ever seen, and I won. Now, how much of this was the designer effect, I can't say, but I don't pretend to be an expert player in this game. And in fact, some publishers will tell you that designers are never really good at playing their own games. There are disagreements there. Now, the next possibility. How do you best benefit from playtesting as a designer? You benefit by focusing. The whole notion that multitasking is efficient is a myth. This has been proved over and over again. You learn more, you do more when you concentrate on one thing, and you do it better. Now there's some research that shows you can do a second thing and not lose efficiency, for example, listening to music, but in a playtest session you might have other things going on that constitute that second thing. You are not at all likely to be good at treating it as a playtest session where you're trying to learn things and playing the game. For me at least, if I try to do this, I won't play the game as well as I could, and I won't do the playtesting as well as I should. So, I prefer not to play. Another question, did you design the game for yourself or for a target market? Now, I always tell people design for a target market which might or might not include you. When I was designing diplomacy variants and D&D editions mostly for practice, I was part of the target market. Now I have my favorite games, and my top favorite game is the game of designing games, but in fact I rarely play against other people. So I design games for other people, not for myself. Now, you have to ask yourself, are you part of the target market? If you're not, should you be playing with people who are part of the target market? No, that skews the result. No. Some people would say, well, you can't know the best strategies if you don't play. Well, there's a presumption there that you're a really good player, and some people are and some people are not. But I think that if you're a really good player, you can watch others and devise the best strategies and know what the best strategies are without actually playing. Or to put it another way, if you watch lots of plays of your game and you haven't figured out the best strategies, even though you weren't playing, you aren't much of a game player. Now the last I think of these is grabbiness, or the controller. If you're demoing a game at a convention, showing people how to play, you might have a tendency to move a player's pieces for them to speed things up. You might even decide what their moves are for them. That's a really bad idea as far as I'm concerned. Not if the game's actually being played. If you're just showing people how it's played and they're not playing, okay. But if they're playing, let them play. That's the whole point of a game. You want to play it. And especially if you're also playing the game, don't do that, because that can cause all kinds of offense. Now, obviously I'm a rare bird. I have never played one of my standalone games as it was published. It's done. Why should I play? It's almost a matter of honor now that I don't play them. But I design games for other people, not for myself. I'll play the games to try out variants, although that's often solo. I'll play the games to try out a new edition, though that's often solo. I, of course, play new prototypes solo several times. But once other people start to play, I only play if I have to. For example, to get the number of players I want, as with that example I gave you where I wanted 4 players and I had to be the 4th. There's lots of differences in game designers, but I want you to think about this. What makes the most sense from the point of view of getting the best playtesting? And I think it is frequently don't play it yourself, at least if there's more than 2 players. Even with 2 players, I don't know. Again, solo, go ahead. All you want. Now, if you're one of those fairly numerous types of designer that design games so that they can play, then you won't like this advice. But, oh well, I'm telling you what's efficient, not necessarily saying that's what you should do.